The prison transport drifted through the asteroid field like a wounded animal. Its engines were dead. Its lights flickered in random patterns. Somewhere inside that broken ship, a human woman had survived 18 months of hell. Rail watched the boarding team prepare their weapons. He was the only Verati among them, and he could feel their hatred like heat from a fire. They tolerated him because he knew the ship's layout. They needed him. That did not mean they trusted him. Captain Bryn Holloway checked his rifle one final time. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and scars on his hands. He had known Diane Shaw before her capture. They had served together on Helios Station. When it fell, he had escaped. She had not. "You stay behind me," Holloway said to Rail. "You speak only when I ask you a question." "Clear, clear," Rail answered. His voice was soft for a Verati. Most humans found his species harsh and loud. Rail had learned to make himself small. The airlock opened with a hiss. The team moved into darkness. Verati ships always felt cold to humans. The species preferred lower temperatures, and their lighting was dim by human standards. Holloway activated his helmet lamp and swept the corridor. Bodies lay against the walls. Verati guards killed by the resistance fighters who had disabled the ship. "Medical bay is 3 levels down," Rail said quietly. They would keep her there. She was valuable to them. Holloway did not respond. He simply moved forward. The ship groaned around them. Metal stressed by weapons fire. Systems failing one by one. They had maybe an hour before the whole thing broke apart. Senna, the Kithran resistance fighter, walked beside Rail. Her insectoid body moved with strange grace, and her antennae twitched constantly, reading the emotional currents around her. She had told Rail once that human emotions were louder than any other species, like shouting in a quiet room. "I sense someone alive," Senna said. "Below us. Great pain. Great emptiness." They found the medical bay behind a sealed door. Rail entered the access code from memory. The door slid open, and the smell hit them immediately. Blood. Chemicals. Fear. Diane Shaw sat in the center of the room. She was connected to machines by dozens of wires and tubes. Her environmental suit was torn in places, patched in others. Her helmet was cracked along the left side, and Holloway could hear the faint whistle of escaping air. But it was her eyes that stopped him. They were open. They saw nothing. She stared at the wall like it contained answers to questions no one should ever ask. "Diane," Holloway said softly. "Diane, it's Bryn. I'm here to take you home." No response, but he moved closer. Her hands were strapped to the chair. He cut the restraints with his knife, and still she did not move. Did not blink. "We need to remove these connections," Rail said, stepping forward. "The monitoring equipment." "I can." Diane moved. It happened so fast that Holloway barely saw it. One moment she was empty. The next, she had Rail by the throat, her fingers digging into his scales with strength that should have been impossible after 18 months of captivity. "Don't," she whispered. Her voice was rough, broken. "Don't let it touch me." Holloway grabbed her arms gently. "Diane, Diane, look at me. He's with us. He defected. He's helping." Her eyes found Holloway's face. Recognition flickered somewhere deep inside them. Then it faded, replaced by something cold. "They all say that," she said. "They all have reasons. Excuses." She released Rail, who stumbled backward, gasping. "Get me out of here. But keep that thing away from me." Senna helped disconnect the monitoring equipment while Rail kept his distance. Diane allowed the Kithran to touch her, allowed Holloway to support her weight as she stood on shaking legs. But every time Rail moved, her eyes tracked him like a predator watching prey. They made it back to the shuttle in silence. Diane collapsed into a seat, her breathing labored. The crack in her helmet was worse than Holloway had thought. He could see the seal failing, tiny bubbles of atmosphere escaping into the void. "Her suit is compromised," Rail said quietly, standing at the far end of the shuttle. "The helmet seal. She has perhaps 2 hours of breathable air remaining." Holloway knelt beside Diane. "We need to fix your helmet, or remove it and get you into a fresh suit." "No." The word came out hard. Final. "Diane, you'll die. Then I die." She closed her eyes. "No vorrati touches me." "Not again. Never again." Holloway looked at Rail. The young Variety's scales had gone pale, a sign of distress in his species. He understood what Diane meant. He understood why. And Holloway realized the horrible truth. The shuttle's medical supplies were designed for humans, but removing a damaged helmet required specialized knowledge. The seals were partially fused. The wrong approach could kill her faster than the leak. The only one on the shuttle who understood Variety medical equipment. The same equipment that had been used to hurt Diane was Rail. The man she would rather die than let touch her might be the only one who could save her life. Holloway watched the timer on Diane's suit display, slowly counting down, and wondered if survival was even something she still wanted. She remembered the exact moment they took her. Diane had been treating a wounded Variety soldier. He was young, scared, bleeding from a wound in his side. The battle for Helios Station raged around them, but in that small medical bay, she had created a pocket of peace. She spoke softly to him, told him he would be fine, cleaned his wound with steady hands that he had looked at her with confusion. Why would a human help an enemy? That was when the door exploded inward. Variety soldiers poured through. They killed the human guards. They secured the room, and their commander walked straight to Diane, still kneeling beside her patient. This one, the commander said, she shows compassion to our wounded. Interesting. The researchers will want to study this. They had taken her because she was kind. The universe had punished her for mercy. The shuttle hummed around her now, pulling her back to the present. Diane kept her eyes closed. She could feel Holloway nearby, his worry like a weight in the air. She could sense Senna's gentle presence, the Kithrin's empathy brushing against her mind like soft fingers, and she could feel Rail. Even across the shuttle, even without looking, she knew exactly where he stood. Her body had learned to track Variety the way prey animals learn to track predators. Diane. Holloway's voice was careful. Can you tell me what happened? What they did. She opened her eyes. The ceiling of the shuttle was gray and plain, so different from the bright lights of the research facility. Those lights had been designed to keep her awake, to make sure she felt everything. They wanted to understand humans, she said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Flat. Empty. We confuse them. We scare them. A species from a death world. A planet that should have killed us 1,000 times over. They want to know why we survived. Holloway said nothing. He waited. Pain tolerance tests, Diane continued. They wanted to know our limits. Turns out we don't have many. We just keep going. Keep healing. Keep refusing to die. It frustrated them. She remembered the needles, the cuts, the burns, the cold observation of scientists who saw her as a puzzle rather than a person. They spoke about her in clinical terms, discussed her responses like she was not in the room, called her species the persistent ones because no matter what they did, she kept breathing. They broke my bones to see how fast they healed, starved me to test our metabolic limits, pushed me to the edge of death to see how far they could go before my body gave up. Diane's hands curled into fists. But the worst part was not the pain. The worst part was the way they talked about me. Like I was interesting. Like my suffering was data. Senna made a soft sound of distress. Her antennae had flattened against her head. I can feel the echoes of it, she said. The violation. The dehumanization. I am so sorry. Don't be. Diane finally looked at the Kithrin. You didn't do it. Your species didn't do it. Her eyes moved to Rail, still standing at the far end of the shuttle. His did. Rail flinched but did not look away. His scales had gone from pale to almost white. A Variety in deep shame looked like a ghost. There was one, Diane said, still watching Rail. One researcher who sometimes looked uncomfortable, who turned away when the others pushed too hard. I remember thinking maybe he was different. Maybe he would help me. The shuttle fell silent. He never did. He just watched, took notes, reported his findings like a good little scientist. Diane's voice cracked. I stopped hoping after that. Hope is a kind of torture when no one answers it. Holloway reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Touch was difficult now, even from friends, even from humans. The Variety had made her body into a thing that was studied rather than respected. Every touch reminded her of cold instruments and clinical observations. Your helmet, Holloway said gently. The seal is failing. We need to do something. I know. Rail says he can help. He understands the equipment. Diane laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Of course he does. He probably helped design the restraints they used to hold me down. Diane, no. She sat up, ignoring the dizziness that washed over her. I would rather suffocate than let another Verati touch me. I would rather die in this shuttle than give them the satisfaction of saving what they tried to destroy. Senna moved closer. Her voice was barely a whisper. Diane, I can feel what you feel. The pain, the rage, the exhaustion. But I can also feel something else. Underneath everything. A spark that refuses to go out. Diane looked at the Kitharin with eyes that held 18 months of darkness. That spark, she said quietly, is the only thing they couldn't take from me. And I won't let a Verati near it. Not now. Not ever. The timer on her suit continued to count down. 1 hour and 43 minutes of air remaining. Holloway watched his old friend choose death over vulnerability, and he did not know how to save someone who no longer wanted to be saved. Rail waited until Diane had fallen into an exhausted sleep before approaching Holloway. The human captain stood at the shuttle's small viewport, watching the stars drift past. His shoulders were tight with tension. Captain, Rail said softly, I must tell you something. Holloway did not turn around. Whatever it is, it can wait. No, it cannot. Rail took a breath. His species did not breathe the same way humans did, but he had picked up the habit. It helped him think. I recognized the marks on her body, the equipment signatures, the scarring patterns. Now Holloway turned. His eyes were hard. I know which facility she was held in, Rail continued. Research Station Keth 7. Deep space. Hidden from your military intelligence. He paused. I know because I was there. The punch came fast. Holloway's fist connected with Rail's jaw, sending the Verati stumbling backward into the shuttle wall. Pain exploded through his face, but Rail did not defend himself. He had expected this. You were there. Holloway's voice was barely controlled. You were part of what they did to her. I was a junior researcher, assigned to the Human Resilience Project. Rail tasted blood. Verati blood was darker than human blood, almost purple. I did not hurt her directly, but I watched. I recorded. I submitted reports. Holloway grabbed him by the front of his suit, lifting him off the ground. Give me one reason not to throw you out the airlock. Because I can save her. Rail met the captain's eyes without flinching. And because I am trying to tell you the truth when I could have stayed silent. Senna appeared beside them, her antennae rigid with alarm. Stop, both of you. Violence will not help Diane. He was part of it, Holloway spat. He helped torture her. I know. Senna's voice was calm but firm. I can feel his guilt. It is enormous. It is genuine. But I can also feel his desire to make amends. Let him speak. Slowly, Holloway released Rail. The Verati slid down the wall, rubbing his jaw. He deserved far worse than a single punch. Tell me everything, Holloway said. And if I think you are lying even once, I will kill you. Rail nodded. He sat on the shuttle floor like a penitent, looking up at the humans who had every right to hate him. I was 23 cycles old when they assigned me to Keth 7. Young, ambitious. I believed what our government told us about humans. That you were dangerous. That you would conquer the galaxy if we did not stop you. The experiments were presented as necessary. A way to find weaknesses in your species. A way to protect our people. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Diane was Subject 7. That was what they called her. Not a name. A number. I watched them test her pain tolerance. Her regeneration limits. Her psychological breaking points. I recorded data. Submitted findings. Told myself it was for the greater good. Holloway's hands were shaking. Senna placed a gentle limb on his arm, steadying him. There was a day, Rail continued, when they pushed her too far. A breaking point experiment. They wanted to see what would make a human give up. Stop fighting. Accept death. His voice cracked. She was dying. I could see it in the monitors. Her heart was failing. Her brain activity was fading. And do you know what she did? Neither human nor Kitharin responded. She looked at me, right at me, and she asked if I had family, if they were safe. Rail's scales shimmered with moisture. Verati tears. She was dying because of us, and she asked about my family. She was worried about me. Silence filled the shuttle. That was the moment I understood. We were not studying a dangerous enemy. We were torturing a person whose capacity for compassion was greater than anything our species possessed. And I was helping. Rail looked at his hands. I filed a protest with the facility commander. Asked them to stop. They refused. They threatened to report me for sympathy toward the enemy. So you defected, Senna said. I ran. I found the resistance. I offered everything I knew in exchange for a chance to help fight against my own people. Rail finally looked up at Holloway. I cannot undo what I did. I cannot erase her pain. But I can use what I learned to save her now. If you let me. Holloway stared at him for a long moment. The captain's face was unreadable. Rage and grief, and something else warred behind his eyes. She recognized you, Holloway finally said. When we found her, she knew your voice. Yes, I was the one who asked them to stop. I was the one who looked away when the others did not. Rail's voice was barely a whisper. I was the one who gave her false hope that someone might help. And then I failed her. The shuttle's alarm chimed softly. Diane's suit timer. 52 minutes of air remaining. Holloway looked at the sleeping woman, then at the Verati who had helped destroy her. If you hurt her, Holloway said slowly, if you make her pain worse in any way, I will not kill you quickly. I will make sure you understand exactly what she felt. Do you understand? Rail nodded. I understand. Then save her, and pray she forgives you, because I never will. Diane woke to the sound of her own breathing. It was shallow, labored. The air inside her helmet tasted thin and stale. She opened her eyes and found Rail standing 3 meters away. Holloway stood between them, his hand resting on his sidearm. Senna waited nearby, her antennae moving slowly. 41 minutes, Holloway said quietly. Diane, we're running out of time. She understood. The crack in her helmet had spread. She could feel the pressure differential now, the slight tug of vacuum trying to pull the air from her lungs. Her body was already struggling. I know, she said. Rail can fix it. He knows the equipment. He knows how to remove the helmet safely without making the seal worse. Diane looked at the Verati. He stood perfectly still, his scales pale, his eyes fixed on the floor. He looked nothing like the cold researchers who had cut into her flesh. He looked like someone carrying a weight too heavy to bear. That made it worse somehow. No, she said. Holloway knelt beside her. Diane, please. I know what he did. I know what they all did. But you can't die like this. Not after everything you survived. Maybe dying is surviving. Her voice was barely a whisper. Maybe it's the only way to win. They wanted to understand humans. They wanted to break us down into data and reports. If I die before they finish, I win. They never get their answers. That's not winning. That's just ending. Diane closed her eyes. The darkness behind her eyelids was familiar. She had spent countless hours in that darkness, retreating from the pain, hiding in the only place they could not reach. He asked them to stop, Holloway said. Rail. He filed a protest, tried to end the experiments. They threatened him, and he defected. He's been fighting against his own people for 8 months. Good for him. He remembers you. Remembers what you said to him when you were dying. You asked about his family. Diane's breath caught. She remembered that moment. The monitors screaming. Her heart giving up. And the young Verati researcher who had looked at her with something that might have been shame. She had wanted to remind him that she was a person. That she had people too. That her death would matter to someone. I remember, she said. He never forgot either. He told me that was the moment he understood what his people were doing. That was why he ran. Diane opened her eyes. Rail had not moved, had not looked up. He stood there like a statue, waiting for judgment. Why won't you look at me? She asked him. Slowly, Rail raised his eyes. They were wet. Verati tears. Because I do not deserve to. You're right. You don't. Diane's voice was cold. You watched them hurt me. You recorded my screams. You turned my pain into reports and data points. You were there every day, and you did nothing. Yes, you could have helped me escape. Could have sabotaged the equipment. Could have done anything except watch. Yes. Diane felt a familiar rage building in her chest. It was the only warm thing left inside her. The only thing the experiments had not been able to freeze. And now you want to touch me. You want to put your hands on my helmet and save my life like some kind of hero. She laughed bitterly. Like that erases everything. It does not. Rael's voice was steady despite his tears. Nothing erases what I did. Nothing makes it acceptable. I watched you suffer, and I told myself it was necessary. I was wrong. I was a coward. I'm still a coward. Then why are you here? Because I would rather die trying to fix what I helped break than live knowing I never tried. The shuttle fell silent. Diane's suit alarm chimed. 33 minutes. Rael took a single step forward. Diane tensed immediately, her hands curling into fists. If I let you save me, she said slowly, I have to believe you're different from the others. I have to believe that a variety can be something other than a monster. Her voice cracked. I can't do that yet. I'm not ready. Rael stopped. He understood. I'm not asking you to trust me, he said. I'm asking you to live long enough to decide whether trust is possible. Die now, and you never get that choice. Let me fix the helmet, and at least the choice remains yours. Diane stared at him. Her oxygen was running out. Her body was failing. And this variety, this researcher who had watched her torture, was offering her the one thing she wanted most: control over her own fate. She reached up and touched the crack in her helmet. Her fingers found the damaged seal. She could feel the cold of space pressing against the thin barrier. If I let you close, she whispered, and you hurt me again, I will kill you. Even if it takes years. Even if I have to crawl through hell to do it. I will find you, and I will make you feel everything they made me feel. I know, Rael said. I accept that. Diane's hand fell away from her helmet. She closed her eyes. Then do it. But know this. She opened her eyes and stared directly into his. I'm not letting you save me because I trust you. I'm letting you save me because I refuse to let your species be the reason I stop breathing. Rael nodded once and stepped forward that he reached for her helmet. His hands touched the helmet, and Diane stopped breathing, not from lack of oxygen, from fear. Pure, animal fear that flooded her body the moment variety scales made contact with her suit. Every muscle locked. Every nerve screamed. 18 months of conditioning told her that this touch meant pain, but the pain did not come. Rael worked slowly, carefully, his clawed fingers moving with surgical precision. He had done this before, not on victims, on patients. Before the war, before the experiments, he had trained as a medical technician. That training lived in his hands even now. I'm releasing the secondary seal, he said quietly. You may feel pressure. Do not move. Diane did not respond. She could not. Her voice was trapped somewhere deep inside her chest, buried under layers of terror. Holloway watched every movement. His hand never left his weapon. If Rael made a single wrong move, if Diane showed any sign of additional distress, he would act. The variety knew this. He accepted it. The helmet hissed as the seal released. Fresh air rushed in, and Diane gasped involuntarily. The shuttle's atmosphere was recycled and artificial, but it tasted like freedom compared to the stale poison she had been breathing. Almost done, Rael murmured. The inner seal is damaged. I need to. Diane's body betrayed her. The memories came all at once. Hands on her helmet in the facility. Researchers removing it to access her face, her neck, the sensitive points where they attached their instruments. The removal of the helmet always meant the beginning of pain. She screamed that it was not a human sound. It was the sound of an animal caught in a trap, beyond reason, beyond thought. Her hands came up and shoved Rael away with strength born of pure adrenaline. He stumbled backward, nearly falling. Diane. Holloway moved to restrain her, but she fought him too. She fought everything. She was back in the facility, back on the table, back in the bright lights and the cold hands and the endless pain. Senna acted without hesitation. The Kithrin moved forward and placed her limbs gently on Diane's shoulders. Pheromones flooded the air, chemical signals designed to calm and soothe. It was a violation of a different kind, manipulating someone's emotions without consent, but there was no time for ethics that Diane's struggle slowed. Her screams faded to whimpers. Her eyes cleared, and she found herself looking at Senna's alien face, so different from the Verati, so gentle. "You are safe," Senna said. "You are on the shuttle. You're with friends. The pain is memory. It is not here." Diane's breathing steadied. The panic receded like a wave pulling back from shore. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I couldn't. I tried to. You have nothing to apologize for." Senna's voice was warm. "Your body remembers what your mind wishes to forget. That is not weakness. That is survival." Rail had not moved from where he fell. He sat on the shuttle floor, his scales pale, his hands trembling. He had felt her fear, had seen the effect his touch produced, had understood, in that moment, exactly what his species had done to her. "The helmet," he said quietly. "It needs to be fully removed. The seal is compromised beyond repair. If we leave it, she will suffocate within minutes." Holloway looked at Diane. "Can you let him finish?" Diane's eyes found Rail. He looked broken, defeated, like the guilt he carried had finally crushed him completely. "No," she said, the word hung in the air. "Then let me die." Diane's voice was calm now, resigned. "I tried. I gave permission. My body refused. There is nothing left in me that can accept help from his hands." Holloway's jaw tightened. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Rail stood slowly. "The seal requires precise manipulation. Human fingers are too large for the mechanism. Kithran limbs lack the dexterity. It must be Verati hands or she dies." Silence. Diane felt the oxygen thinning again. Her lungs burned. Her vision blurred at the edges. So this was how it ended. Not in the facility, not on the table, but in a shuttle surrounded by people who wanted to save her and could not. She closed her eyes, and then she felt hands on her helmet again. Her eyes snapped open. Rail was there, his face inches from hers, his claws working the seal with desperate speed. She had not heard him approach, had not sensed him move. "Forgive me," he whispered. "Hate me forever if you must. But I will not let you die." The helmet came free. Air rushed in. Diane gasped, coughed, felt tears streaming down her face. Rail stepped back immediately. He retreated to the far corner of the shuttle and did not look at her. Holloway wrapped a blanket around Diane's shoulders. Senna checked her vital signs. They were weak but stable. She would live. But as consciousness began to fade into exhausted sleep, Diane's last thought was not of gratitude. It was the realization that once again, a Verati had touched her without her consent. Once again, her choice had been taken away. Even when the intention was to save, the violation remained. 3 weeks passed before Diane spoke to Rail directly. The resistance base was built into the hollowed remains of a destroyed space station. Hundreds of species lived here, united against the Verati collective. Humans were rare. Verati defectors were rarer. Diane and Rail existed in the same spaces, but never acknowledged each other. Until the day she found him alone in the medical bay, he was organizing supplies, his back to the door, his movements slow and careful. He looked thinner than before, paler. Senna had told Diane that he barely ate, barely slept. The guilt was consuming him. Good, Diane had thought at the time. Let it. But now, standing in the doorway, she felt something different. Not forgiveness, not even understanding, just exhaustion. She was tired of carrying the weight of her anger alongside the weight of her memories. "You stayed," she said. Rail froze. He did not turn around. "I expected you to leave after what happened on the shuttle," Diane continued. "Run away again. Find another resistance cell where no one knew what you did. Where would I go?" His voice was quiet. "What I did follows me everywhere. It lives in my scales. It breathes when I breathe. Running changes nothing." Diane stepped into the medical bay. Her body tensed automatically, the old conditioning flaring at the sight of medical equipment. She forced herself to keep moving. "I hate you," she said. "I want you to know that. I hate everything you represent. Every time I see your scales, I remember the hands that hurt me. Every time I hear your voice, I remember the researchers discussing my pain like it was interesting data." Rail finally turned. His eyes were hollow. "Empty. I know, but..." Diane stopped a few meters away. "I also remember you asking them to stop. I remember you looking away when the others did not. And I remember that you defected when you could have stayed comfortable and safe. That does not excuse, I'm not excusing anything. Her voice sharpened. I'm not forgiving you. I don't know if I ever will. Forgiveness isn't something you earn by saving someone's life once. It's something that grows over years if it grows at all. Rail nodded. He understood. What I'm saying is this. Diane took a breath. You watched them hurt me. You participated by being present. You helped create the conditions that nearly destroyed me. She paused. But you also watched yourself become a monster. And you stopped. You chose to stop. That's not nothing. The medical bay fell silent. Somewhere in the station, voices echoed through corridors. Life continued around them, indifferent to the weight of their conversation. I don't want your gratitude, Rail said finally. I don't want your forgiveness. I just want to help fix what my people broke, even if it takes the rest of my life. Even if you never speak to me again. Diane studied him for a long moment. He meant it. She could see that now. His guilt was not performed. His remorse was not strategic. He was simply a person who had done terrible things and now had to live with the knowledge of who he had been. The intelligence I gathered during my captivity, she said, changing the subject. Facility locations, researcher names, experimental protocols. Holloway says it's already helping the resistance. Yes, we've raided 2 supply lines based on your information. Good. Diane's jaw tightened. They wanted to study humans. They wanted to understand our resilience. Now, they're going to see it firsthand. We're going to tear their research program apart piece by piece. For the first time, something like hope flickered in Rail's eyes. Not hope for forgiveness. Hope that his betrayal of his own people might actually matter. I can help with that, he said. I know the internal protocols, the security systems, the command structure. I know you can. Diane turned toward the door. That's why I'm here. We have a planning meeting in 1 hour. You should be there. She paused at the threshold. This doesn't mean I trust you. This doesn't mean we're friends. This means I'm choosing to work with a useful asset instead of letting my hatred make me stupid. She looked back at him. Can you accept that? Rail nodded. Yes. Then I'll see you in 1 hour. She left without another word. Rail stood alone in the medical bay, surrounded by the tools of healing that his people had perverted into instruments of torture. He had been given something he never expected, a chance. Not for forgiveness, not for redemption. Just a chance to be useful to IT was enough that in the weeks that followed, Diane threw herself into the fight against the collective. She became a tactical advisor, using her knowledge of variety methods to plan raids and rescue missions. She and Rail worked in the same briefings, but rarely spoke beyond operational necessities. One day, she was struggling with a piece of captured variety equipment. Without thinking, she asked Rail for help. He assisted, kept his distance, and returned to his station without comment. She did not thank him. But she did not flinch either. Recovery is not a single moment of forgiveness. It is not a dramatic scene of reconciliation. It is 10,000 small choices to keep living despite what was done. Diane Shaw made her choice every morning when she opened her eyes, and every morning it got a fraction easier.